Early government. Why are the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights important to American history? In this lesson, we will analyze and evaluate the text, intent, meaning, and importance of the U.S. Constitution. What is a democracy? A democracy is a system of government where power is vested in the people. In a democracy, citizens rule either directly or through freely elected representatives. The idea of a democratic government was born during the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was an intellectual movement in Europe. Enlightenment thinkers emphasized reason and individualism. Enlightenment ideas also inspired our founding fathers of the American Revolution, such as Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Paine. The Great Awakening was a religious movement in the colonies. While it occurred in all parts of the United States, it was especially strong in the Northeast and the Midwest. It was led by Protestant preachers. However, this awakening was unique in that it moved beyond the educated elite of New England to those who were less wealthy and less educated. The lasting legacy of the Great Awakening left a strong Christian influence on U.S. religion, culture, and politics. The Declaration of Independence of 1776 stated the goals of the Americans as they fought for freedom. It formally declared the colony's intention to separate from Great Britain. The Declaration of Independence also promised a system of government that promoted liberty, equality, and protection of individual rights, based on the desires of the people. And most importantly, the Declaration of Independence established the United States. The Constitution wasn't the first government the United States established. Originally, the colonies were ruled by a loose agreement called the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation was an experiment in government that failed because it gave too much power to the federal governments, because it gave too much power to the state governments and not enough to the federal government. The U.S. Constitution was written during the Continental Congress. This document established the basic structure of our government. The Constitution also represented fundamental laws and principles of the United States. The founding forefathers wanted to create a government that was strong enough to defend our nation's interests and to promote our general welfare. In the preamble, it states, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." The founding fathers also wanted to give the national government many powers. Federalism is where power is divided between the national government and the states. However, the federal law is supreme over any state law. The U.S. Constitution is divided in three parts: the preamble, the articles, and the amendments. In the articles, it established the different parts of government and the power and responsibilities for each branch. For example, the legislative branch's responsibility is to make laws. Article 1 established the Congress, which makes up the legislative branch, and include the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. The executive branch carries out laws, and the people included are the president, the vice president, and the cabinet. Furthermore, the president was established under Article 2 and was given additional duties. He is also the commander of the military, and he can sign bills into law and appoints Supreme Court judges. The judicial branch was established under Article 3, and the primary role of the Supreme Court is to evaluate laws. Marbury v. Madison gave the Supreme Court the power of judicial review to determine if a law follows the Constitution. Inclusive to this branch are the lower courts across the United States and the 9 Supreme Court justices. The Bill of Rights. When the Constitution was first created in 1787, not everyone thought it did enough to protect our individual rights. To make sure of everyone's support, when the Continental Congress met again in 1789, They added 10 amendments to aid in protecting our individual liberties and freedoms. These first 10 amendments became known as the Bill of Rights. Amendment number 1 is actually 5 different amendments. In it, we have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition. In freedom of religion, it was established because many who came to America came for religious freedoms. They did not want to be told by the government what they had to believe in. Under freedom of speech, it protects our freedom to say or write most things. You cannot be jailed for criticizing your government, as was formerly done. However, you cannot create a clear and present danger with your speech that might harm others, such as yelling fire in a crowded place. Freedom of the press allows newspapers, radio, television, or the internet to write or publish what they want to without fear of punishment. People need a free press and a democracy to be informed voters. Freedom of assembly was established because during the revolution it was illegal to gather in groups of more than 3. We now have the right to peaceful assembly. In freedom to petition, you have the right to write to government officials asking them to change a law or to create a law without fear of punishment. Amendment number 2 is the right to bear arms. It states that people have a right to bear arms. It also says that a well-regulated military is necessary to the security of a free state. Amendment number 3 is quartering of soldiers. During the revolution, the king placed troops in homes of civilians at the homeowner's expense. Amendment number 3 is the right not to have soldiers in one's home. In other words, no quartering of soldiers is protected by the Third Amendment. The Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and Seventh Amendments prohibits government officials from taking away a person's life, liberty, or property without following certain fair and reasonable searches. The Fourth Amendment deals with arrests and searches. It provides protection against unreasonable search and seizures. This was needed as colonists were smuggling products so as not to pay the British taxes. British government officials would randomly search a colony's property looking for smuggled goods. The Fourth Amendment protects you against unreasonable search and seizures. Now a judge has to sign a search warrant before your property can be legally searched. Amendment number 5 concerns rights of persons accused of crimes. A person cannot be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. In the Fifth Amendment, certain legal procedures must be carried out before a person can be punished. For example, a grand jury is required to issue an indictment before he can be tried for a serious crime. Also, no one can be forced to testify against herself or himself. This is known as self-incrimination, and cannot be forced to testify against yourself. The Supreme Court ruling of Miranda versus Arizona says you must be informed of your rights, or what you say cannot be used. Furthermore, no one can be tried twice for the same crime. This is known as double jeopardy. Also, no one can be punished without the due process of law. And lastly, eminent domain gives government the right to take private property for public use, but they must give you fair compensation or payment for the property, like taking your home to build a road. The rights of persons on trial for crimes is covered in the Sixth Amendment. In the Sixth Amendment, people have a right to a speedy trial. They also have the right to legal counsel or the right to be represented by a lawyer. People have the right to a trial by jury, and furthermore, the Sixth Amendment allows people to have the right to confront their accusers. In most civil suits, people have the right to a jury trial and is protected by the Seventh Amendment. No cruel or unusual punishment is protected or covered under the Eighth Amendment, which places limitations on bail and punishment. In other words, excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment are strictly forbidden. The Ninth and Tenth Amendments try to limit the powers of the government. Amendment 9 deals with the rights kept by the people. There are so many basic human rights that all of them could not be listed in the Constitution. However, just because the Constitution doesn't list a right doesn't mean we don't have it. The people have all the rights not specifically given to the government. The last Bill of Rights is the 10th Amendment, and it deals with powers kept by the states or people. The federal government has specific powers given to them by the U.S. Constitution. Powers not given to the federal government by the Constitution belong to the states or the people.